In this episode, in this A&E off topic, I want to start doing particular videos about my professional opinion, my experiences with different vendors. Cisco, Palo Alto Networks, HP, Fortinet, the good and the bad. I will start doing that because I think it's really important to share my experiences with you guys, and you guys can share your experiences so that we can all learn about the good and the bad with these vendors, because all vendors have pros and cons. And I think it's really important that we have that conversation and that we are aware of some of these things that are out there so that we're more equipped to deal with that. So in this particular video, for the next couple of minutes, I want to talk about Hewlett Packard Enterprise, HPE, and what I really experienced in the last couple of months, which really was a game changer for me. I learned a whole lot, not just about that particular product, but how I am approaching equipment moving forward. So sometime last year, 2017, I was working on a very, very large data center project. Okay, it was an SDN project. All right, and project that really interests me. I'm like, yes, right. And SDN, is kind of the direction that we're kind of looking at for everything. It's still work in progress, which I've mentioned many times before. But this was a great project that I definitely had to get involved with. I worked with them before on other projects for Palo Alto network deployments. It was for a data center, a cloud computing environment that we were setting up. So in this data center that they want to be SDN controlled, I was hesitant because they had HPE switches. I don't have much experience with Hewlett Packard switches. I mean, I've done it from time to time. When you're a network person, especially a consultant, when you go in and you're working on a project or doing an assessment or troubleshooting, you may encounter equipment that you do not have exposure to. And sometimes I think I worked on a couple of Netgear switches. That was painful. But layer 2, layer 3, they're all the same stuff. It's basically knowing how to configure it within that particular platform that you're using, or that you're going to administer or support. Anyway, so I've done HP probably a couple of times. Okay, it's not that difficult. Anyway, so they had HP switches, and for the SDN solution that they wanted to use, it was OpenFlow. So completing that project got me motivated and inspired because I saw why they were doing it. I saw basically the direction, and that's why it was a priority to create that as a training package, which is why we released it the way that we did. So back to the data center project that has the HP switches. Now, they also had some other switches there too that were OpenFlow supported. That was important. But most of them were HP switches, right? Some of them were 10 gig switches, some were 1 gig switches. It all depends on, there are certain parts of the data center with different type of server farms that actually existed, right? It was a data center clause topology with, several spine switches and a lot of leaf switches with the servers connected. There were some hyper-converged systems there using Nutanix and them being clustered together. And that's going to be another training series we're going to release pretty soon, which is very exciting. Anyway, so everything was working just fine in terms of some of these other switches connecting to the SDN controller in the environment. But some of the HP switches would not connect because they were not supported for OpenFlow. So I was like, okay, well, these switches are supported. I confirmed from the release notes, but it needed a firmware upgrade. So I was like, oh no. So I told the customer, do you have a support contract with Hewlett Packard so that we can download the necessary software to install on the switches to get them registered, and then we can start doing our programming to get everything working based on our requirements. They had no support contract. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be painful. That means I have to find a HP partner, get a quote for basically, quote for the hardware to get the necessary software that is needed. Because remember, I come mainly from a Cisco background. I'm a CCIE, okay? So I worked mostly with Cisco equipment all my life, okay? Or my life as a network engineer. And if you want software, you must have a Cisco SmartNet account to get software for the routers, the switches, basically anything. Okay. Same for Palo Alto Networks. You got to have the appropriate equipment to get access to the software. Same for Fortinet. All of this stuff. So I was dreading this process because I know I'm not a big fan of working with vendors because they try to sell you everything. They want to do everything, right? That's their business model. I get it. Okay. So, I have to be very clear with vendors. I'm only looking for this. And once I do that, everything is perfectly fine, but just something to be aware of. I'm very sketchy of partners because of their motivations. So I was really dreading this process, and I was speaking to a colleague only by accident. And he said, he says, "Oh, what you working on?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm working on this data center project. They have HP switches, but here's my problem." And he looked at me and he kind of smirked and said, "I don't use Cisco people." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Dude, the HP software is free." I said, "Bullshit. It ain't free. It's not free for Cisco. It's not free for Palo Alto Networks. It's not free for Fortinet. None of that is free. What do you mean it's free? They say it's free." Okay. It was like I was in the dark. Like I had no clue what was going on. So I did a search on Google because I knew the exact firmware that I needed. So I did a search. I went to the Hewlett Packard website, and I went right to the software center. Okay, so there's all the switches. Okay, I selected the switches that we had in the environment. Okay, very easy to navigate. It was very, very easy. There was nothing complicated about it. So I like this interface. Okay, remember, this is a Cisco guy, right? Cisco, Palo Alto Networks, Fortinet. That's the stuff I've been working with forever. Maybe a little bit of Juniper. Anyway, so I found the link and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna click here and it's gonna, do this process, right? Clicked on the download link, downloaded it. Okay, that was too easy. Okay, that's probably for that one was for a smaller switch. Let's go to the 10 gig one, which we have in that environment. I could download that as well. So I was very hesitant. I'm like, okay, there's a catch. This can't be for free. And we loaded it to the appropriate switches and everything was working basically within an hour. Okay. And here's the ticker though, that when I downloaded it, I did not need to create an account. It's like me going to some static website, going to a link and I can download it. There's no questions asked. I could download the software without any hassle or problem. So that experience really, really made me kind of take many steps back. And, I've been speaking with a lot of people and I actually want to hear your guys. If you guys are HP, you love HP switches, please tell me why. Because I always kind of feel like it makes sense for them to do that because the software is nothing without the hardware. That's something I've always been baffled about. Like if someone gives me a Nexus 9000 image, thank you. There's nothing I can do with it because I don't have the freaking hardware for that. So that software is irrelevant. It's like giving me a video game for an Xbox One and I don't even have an Xbox One. That is irrelevant. I could sell it though, I guess. But you got to do it on legal terms of how you do that. So that was something that I always kind of felt like if someone gave me an image for a Palo Alto Networks firewall, well, that only makes sense if I have a Palo Alto Networks firewall. Otherwise, it's nothing more but a brick. So why is HP actually doing that? But just that experience of how that was handled, how I experienced that, I was extremely impressed. And it made me very upset with myself that as a network engineer, I should have been more open to these products. HP has been around for a long time. They're still making switches. There's companies that are still using these switches. They're obviously working. They have enterprise related switches. They're working, okay? And besides, not everyone has a Cisco switch. The large data center environments, they don't have Cisco switches. I think I said this so many times, but for me, it is the biggest proof. Facebook. It's probably not the best time to talk about Facebook with what's going on with Congress and privacy. However, their network infrastructure, they're not using Cisco stuff. Okay, they may have some Cisco stuff probably somewhere, but their data center infrastructure is not using Cisco switches. A lot of environments are not using Cisco switches. Okay, and I think that we have got to a particular time period that with the equipment that exists, they're all reliable. Okay, they're basically reliable. Cisco being better than this isn't really a big deal. Besides, there was a particular thread on Reddit that actually says that Cisco's marketplace with switches is going down. Of course it's going down. Switches like firewalls, they all work, okay? It's basically making sure that they are configured correctly and they have the proper placement and you get the right equipment and how they're placed in the particular environment. So what I learned about Hewlett Packard was really, really simple, okay? That I need to seriously, I need to take this company very, very seriously. And I told some of my customers, they're looking at some Cisco switches for some of our deployments. And I'm like, let's take a step back for a second. I'm seeing good things from HP. Based on your requirements, if we can actually accommodate that with an HP switch, I think we should actually look into that. So I started doing that. And I want to do a video series of showing how to configure HPE switches, but I don't think there'd be much interest there because, HPE has been around for such a long time. But I'll put it on the wish list to see if there's interest there and you guys can vote on it and we'll go from there. And that's pretty much it. I wanted to share that particular story because that's really what I have personally encountered with Hewlett Packard. Because before in the past, I really just kind of blew them off. I didn't take them seriously. Like they're not a real enterprise company. Like data centers don't use HP switches. No, there are many that do use HP switches. Like I've said, I've seen them from time to time. I dealt with them from time to time. But whenever someone told me what I recommended, yeah, I chose Cisco. Cisco switches are definitely reliable. I would still recommend that if the budget makes sense. But honestly, I'm really leaning towards an HP and trying to kind of recommend that for my customers. Now, there's some that still prefer Cisco, and no problem. I have that long years of experience with that. That's great. But for companies that are very, about their budget, medium-sized companies, even some large-sized companies, here's HP. They have a switch selector page. It is freaking amazing. Cisco doesn't have anything like that. Cisco has changed as a company, and I'm really just disappointed. Because you remember back in the day when Cisco was just a router and switch company? They were really good at that. Like they were unstoppable. Then Cisco's and their acquisition, Cisco has gotten so big that they are really, really disorganized. I don't think they really know what they're doing. They're different departments doing different things. And when I look at the landscape with networking, things aren't all Cisco anymore. You realize that, right? Many of you guys have basically made comments about that. Your firewalls, people are, I actually have heard people say, oh, if it's not a Palo Alto Network firewall, it's not going into my environment though, right? And of course I respond, I guess you have the budget for it. They say, oh, of course we do. Then we're good, okay? Most companies don't have that kind of budget for Palo Alto Network type firewalls, okay? But then there's Fortinet, which is definitely a big, that's like the dark horse. People love Fortinets. And I see that from the training and what you guys are asking about. That actually is kind of outdoing our Palo Alto Network stuff because people love those firewalls. They have FortiOS 6.0. They have blown up, and I'm so proud of them because I love that firewall immensely. But firewalls, I barely see Cisco anymore. Like the Cisco ASAs or the Firepowers, I barely see those. I think I've seen it probably like once or twice in the last couple of years. And being really generous with that. Switches, yeah, some are Cisco, but some are HP. Some are just different vendors. Some are basically open source products. When it comes to load balancing, it's not Cisco. When it comes to WAN optimization, it's not Cisco. When it comes to SD-WAN, it's not Cisco. So, yeah, Cisco could be there for routers and for switches, but I'm seeing basically that transition. So I don't want you guys to be close-minded to a vendor and say, Cisco this, Cisco that. Cisco is the largest networking company out there. But I think that landscape is changing, and having exposure to multiple vendors is critical to be a network engineer in today's market. And we're done with this particular A&E off topic. So thanks for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and support us at routehub.net. And in the next A&E off topic, I'll talk more about other vendors, good and the bad, and things like that. Or more importantly, my experiences with that vendor. That's probably the better title for that. And that will include Palo Alto Networks. There's some stuff about that. Ka-ching! That definitely is a concern for me. Fortinet, Cisco, that'll probably be many videos, I guess, because I did some videos about that already. Riverbed, things like that. Some of my experiences that I want to share and hear from you guys about your experiences with some of these vendors so that we are all learning together. Because being aware is really important, because maybe before you never knew about HP switches or considered it. And I'm kind of telling you, you should not dismiss it. You should definitely consider it. So again, I'm being repetitive, but we'll have more conversations on this channel. So thank you for watching, and until next time, keep networking.